The manga starts and the very first thing seen are two girls going on and on about a rumor. This rumor is not just famous among girls, it's famous among all the school students, even in the elementary level. As one of the girls talks to a person, she screams how her friends are more important to her than anything. As she cuts her call, from the back, a very gentle and childish-like voice lets the girl know that they both can be friends. As she glances back, in the very next second, the girl completely vanishes into thin air, and the only thing that remains behind is her bicycle and the eerie sound of the tire moving. The manga starts, and the very first thing that we learn about is our female protagonist Tomoko's horrific and sad life that she sadly has to endure. As a boy holds her down, one person brings out a razor, and as they start to laugh, they let Tomoko know that they are going to shave her eyebrows. As they do it, they end up doing it the wrong way and cut her, and she screams from the sharp pain. As she is held firmly, the man from behind starts to mutter on how they can even proceed and do more things to her, and even lifting her clothes. As she screams and cries, the teacher enters from the side. As she sees Tomoko being ganged up on by almost half a dozen people, the teacher quietly shakes her stupid head off and advice on how they should get their pranks aside and start getting serious about their studies. Seeing this, Tomoko completely goes into a shock mode. The only person who is responsible for the children just completely turns a blind eye to her misery and misfortune. As the kids actually listen to the teacher, they leave her, but as always, Tomoko's life is just a misery, and only one of its episodes has ended. One of the girls glances back at Tomoko and lets her know that she should just quit her school and stop breathing. She struggles to get up, and as she stands at her desk, we quickly learn about the tragic and sad life that she has been enduring in school. Her daily life is filled with torture, humiliation, and lots of bullying. It's so bad that no matter how much she tries, she has never been able to escape it at this level. As she goes back, she sees two kids playing around with themselves, and that's a point where she questions herself on how miserable she really is, and she asks to herself that ever since she started to get bullied, she realized how lonely she really is and she doesn't really have a single friend. A flashback really rips her heart off as one of the girls from her class requests her for her note. As she realizes this, she smiles, thinking that maybe she has gotten a friend, and for that particular reason, she gave her best to make the notes super clean. As the girls' requests continue, Tomoko actually starts to put more work on the answers, and she does her best to make the notes so easy to digest for the other students, so she would keep on asking her again and again. As their usual routine starts to develop, Tomoko actually decides to go one step ahead, and she makes a copy of her entire homework. As she proposes that she can have it, the girl actually starts to become more confused, and she asks if this is for lending or something, and she leaves with a troubled expression. After that, things start to turn sour for her. She returns one day from her regular cleaning duties, and she overhears the girl speaking to her friend about something regarding notebooks and lending, and that's when she really realizes how selfish and cruel the world can really be. The girl mutters on how Tomoko is trying literally too hard to impress and be a good girl so she could land friends, but they remark on how she's absolutely terrible at making friends. As they laugh, Tomoko is quite left shocked and pretty much heartbroken. The things continue, and she is silently waiting for a chance to make friends, but that all fails, and in one of the cases, the girls are muttering on how they are going to go karaoke, and as the rest of the classmates asks for Tomoko, they end up throwing all of their work towards her and request that she could please handle their cleaning duty. As always, she just gives out a fake smile, and deep down, she cries that she doesn't want to be hated by anyone. As she goes back from the brutal session of bullying, something really strange happens, and from the bush, an eye pops out and completely catches her off guard. It is so scary that for a minute she is completely creeped out. She notices how weirdly it is placed, and when she checks it, she finds that it is a messed up doll which is quite well made and has beautiful golden hair. As she holds it, she couldn't help but be surprised on how people could leave a beautiful and magnificent doll like this. She decides to just hand it over to the police, but as she notices the mess that the doll was in, she decides to do something that she should have never done. She brings it back to her place, and she starts to give it a wash. From the back, her father enters and asks what she's doing, and she replies on how she found the doll and it was probably lost, and she wanted to throw it in the police box, but she decided to postpone this until the weekend. Her father reminds her that she should do this, and he asks what she's going to do with it now. For a minute, she stares and she decides that, if it's okay with everyone, she could really keep it for some time being. She posts on the internet and mentions how she found the magnificent doll next to a building apartment, and if it belongs to someone, then they can reach out. As she pats her hair, she mutters on how she really hopes that the owner would find it, but now the only thing left for her to do is to sleep and say goodbye to all the horrible things that happened to her. As she goes to the bed, the most creepy thing starts to happen to her. The doll literally comes to life and glares at her with its golden and white pupils that literally resonate a creepiness that is way out from hell. The next day she is running a little late, and as she dashes towards the hallway to her class, she notices that when she puts her bag down, a string of hair is visible, and when she checks, it is none other than the doll that she had picked up yesterday. Now she has absolutely no idea on how it really got there, but for a minute she freezes, and what is more scary, she is afraid that, if the bullies around even get a hint of it, they would literally just bully her apart to the point that it would become unbearable. So she decides to hide it as best as possible. We also get an introduction on the horrible students in Tomoko's class. Aika is the class rep who is almost kind to everyone but terrible to Tomoko. Yuri is the talented and beautiful boy of the class who is also a son of a big businessman. Tatsugaya is the infamous delinquent of the school who is famous for his loudmouth and really provocative behavior. And Masahiro is the school's idol, the most wonderful airhead that everyone adores. These are the group of people that have formed bonds that are stronger than anyone's in the class, and together they really hold a monopoly in the class communication and environment. As one of the girls mentions everything, her classmate interrupts her and lets her know to watch her tone, as she does not want to be hated like Tomoko. During the lunch break, Aika demands the free food that Tomoko had to purchase for her, and she starts to swear at Tomoko on how she's an old hag and was not able to bring her food properly. Tomoko leaves while holding and clenching her bag really tightly, and in the back of the building, she decides to really check out why the doll is there in the first place. When she opens the bag, from the side, someone grabs it and quietly sneaks up behind her and grabs the doll by its head. Now this completely sends shivers down Tomoko's spine. All the bullies quickly gather and add on how Tomoko was being suspicious, and they thought that something was wrong, and they were right. Aika starts to remark on how she's literally embarrassing and childish to bring a doll to the class, and Masahiro, on the other hand, starts to make jokes on how her mentality could be wrong and maybe she's a penguin or something. Aika, on the other hand, asks if Tomoko is really that desperate to make up with them so badly. As she makes a really pissed expression after Tomoko calls out Aika's name, Aika quickly grabs poor Tomoko by her tie, and she lets her know with an absolutely disgusting tone that she should just disappear, and she shoves her hard and asks on why she had brought a disgusting and creepy doll at the school. As the stupid delinquent asks what they could do to the doll, Aika lets him know that they can throw it in the trash. The delinquent trash, who previously harassed her pretty bad, remarks on how the dolls here are so annoying, and he throws the doll right in the air and into a fence area. The doll ends up falling into a nearby swimming pool that is filled with algae. The doll hauntingly floats on the water for a minute, and as the entire group starts to mutter more on how it's disgusting and creepy, they decide to give Tomoko a quick beating before they leave. They start to stomp on her, and as they leave, it really is terrible. Tomoko herself quietly leaves, and after a few hours, when it is nightfall, she returns home, and she is drenched in dirty and smelling chlorine-filled water. It turns out she had to dive in the swimming pool to grab the doll once more. As she complains on how she stinks, she looks at the doll and mutters on what exactly she's doing with her life now. After they both take a nice sweet warm bath, Tomoko decides to give the doll a little hair job, and she kind of sniffs her and notices that the doll still kind of stinks. As she glares at the doll's eye, she notices that the doll is actually looking straight into Tomoko's eyes without any hesitation or without any connection to being a non-living object. It kind of feels pretty creepy. So she just lays it down opposite side, and she apologizes on how it's been terrible and the doll even had to go to the disgusting swimming pool. She adds on how she's terrible at making friends. Just like this, we get a flashback on how this entire bullying season and cycle really got so worse for her. A few months ago, a big cultural festival is literally just days away, and Aika is the center of attention, and she is really there to hype up the entire class. The entire class has different roles and leads, and different people are playing it, and literally everyone is having the most wonderful time that they could ever imagine. Aika decides to give a pretty sweet and important role in the student council side, and Tomoko quietly has to accept since it is the best circle that she could ask for. One day, as everyone is preparing for the festival, the delinquent trash is actually staying up pretty late, and as Tomoko and Aika spot him, he was busy drinking alcohol right in the school. As both of the girls confront him, he becomes aggressive and spews on how they cannot lecture him and are not fit to talk to him. At the start of everything, Aika decides to give Tomoko a chance to prove herself, and essentially Aika tells Tomoko to clean up the mess that the delinquent trash had made. But unfortunately, as she kind of makes a mistake to really throw the cans in the wrong bin, she decides to fall for a big blunder, and on the very next day the beer can is spotted, and the entire class is suspended for drinking. Aika looks back. It seemed like the entire class is withdrawn from the culture festival that literally everyone was waiting for months and months and prepared with everything that they have gotten. Now, as the entire class erupts, Aika is pretty upset, and she starts to scream on how this is unfair and all their hard work is going to go to waste. But the teacher reminds her that it's already been decided. The entire class starts to cry on how this is so terrible and so wrong, and from the side, someone reminds them that Tomoko is responsible for throwing out the beer cans, and Aika starts to blame her for everything. They blame her for ruining their months and months of hard work, and all of that leads her to being severely bullied. Back to reality, as she brushes her hair, tears start to overflow, and she cries on how she was terribly sorry but couldn't do anything, but cries on how she didn't even hurt anyone, but still, she has been suffering a lot because of this. She remarks on how the only friend that she really has is a doll who doesn't talk back to her, and she mutters on how it would be better for everyone to be a doll. She hears an eerie and cute childish-like voice that lets her know that she would do it. The doll twists her little head in a 180-degree turn and glares through Tomoko's soul, and all life leaves her body. The doll mutters that she will make everyone her friend. An absolutely deafening sight comes into her view, literally shaking her to her core. Tomoko pushes the doll, screaming no at the top of her lungs, and the doll ends up falling to the ground. As she quietly looks at the doll, she reflects that maybe she just had an illusion or something like that. As she picks it up and dresses the doll, she places it on the bookshelf where she placed it yesterday. But this time, she couldn't really let go of the idea that this doll was maybe alive and speaking and even making comments that normal people could make. So she decides to place it in a closed cupboard. As she does that, she closes the door on the doll, and as the light fades into nothing that evening, she goes to her bed. The cupboard door opens, and from inside, in pitch-black darkness, the doll emerges. The cupboard door then closes. The next day she stretches herself and checks the cupboard, noticing nothing is amiss. When she returns to her class, she ends up seeing two boys harassing another boy from a different class, and she looks at it from the back. The careless teacher calls out to Tomoko to hurry up with her classes, and Tomoko is quite used to seeing teachers ignore bullying at this point. As she walks away, she sits back onto her desk and asks if bullying and this cycle is really that unavoidable. As the teacher starts the class, she lets the entire class know that the class delinquent trash has not been home for a while, and this morning his parents called the school and informed the teachers that he won't be able to attend. As the entire class questions where he could be, the teacher informs how they haven't called the police yet but will keep everyone updated. The boys then start to message him over and over again, but he doesn't reply. Masahiro adds that maybe he's getting all beat up at a place, and maybe he had a long fight with a rival gang. As they all talk and add on how he's going to be back in no time, Masahiro even adds that lately, the delinquent trash has been getting a little out of hand and has been getting some tattoos on his back. As Aika refuses to believe it, Yuri ends up showing a picture of his back tattoo. As all of them are pretty shocked to hear that, Tomoko, on the other hand, quietly listens to the things that are going on, and since Tomoko really hates the delinquent trash, she clenches her arms and wonders if she's all right for the time being. On the other side, a motorcycle crashes into a pole, and a man is running desperately for his life. The delinquent who hasn't come to class is holding his arm, which is bleeding a lot, and he is running from something that literally shook him to his core. As his eye sees a hand, we don't really get to see what happened next. As Tomoko returns from her class, she is glad to finally witness a day where she wasn't harassed or bullied to the point where she would have to cover up her bruises. As she was about to enter, she notices something really strange. Some blonde hair is sticking out. Immediately, she is worried, thinking that maybe the delinquent trash has broken into her home and maybe is there to attack her or something or get even more physical than he already was. She checks on how the door was not locked, and as she makes her way to her room, it takes her a lot of courage, and every step of her is really filled with fear and nervousness. She keeps remembering how the delinquent dude could be injured or maybe here for an alternative reason, but as she checks, the room is completely clean. It is just as she left it, and she asks herself if the delinquent trash has left or something. As she roams around, she sees the same doll that she locked up, and her eyes widen. But this time, she notices that the doll has some blood marks on it, and right next to her, she sees the most grotesque, the most heart-wrenching sight that she could imagine. A literal horror figure is sitting right next to the doll with stitches all over its body, and it is a piece of the delinquent trash's body who harassed Tomoko for months. It has these weird and absolute horrifying fingers and joints that are impossible to replicate, and only a twisted, devil-like mind could do something like this. As this sends shivers and shocks to Tomoko, she starts to ask if this is a stuffed animal that is based on the delinquent guy, and she adds on how this is too real, and the color and the smell of the blood is also very real. She asks if this is human, and from the side, the creepy doll glares at her, and lets her know that she has now finally made new friends. Hearing this, Tomoko screams and she falls down, and the doll quietly grabs the figure. She drops down and walks towards Tomoko, and she lets her know that she has a friend for her. As she does this, Tomoko's eyes completely widen as she notices how this is actually the same tattoo that the entire Bullies group were bragging on and on about, and this makes her terrified and petrified, and she screams and dashes outside. She quickly grabs a bicycle, and she makes a dash for it, and she runs and runs towards nowhere, and after realizing what really happened, she starts to throw up. She cries that this is all a dream and begs for her to wake up. In the night, when she has no hope, someone approaches her from the back, and it is her father, and he asks what she's doing here so late. As her father asks if she needed to visit the hospital, she instead stands up and asks if there is anything weird in the home, and she adds on how she forgot to lock the door. Her father is a little shocked, but he lets her know that they shouldn't be really worried since their home didn't have anything that valuable that could be stolen. Tomoko is tired and wants to really go to sleep now, and as she calms down, later they walk back home. When her father enters with her to the place, she glares through the hallway, and it almost makes her paranoid. Her father proposes that maybe they should check the entire place together to really make sure that there is nothing wrong, and as they go from room to room, they visit every place, and as they went to Tomoko's room, they look inside and only find the doll sitting on the bookshelf. She holds her hand, and as she checks, the other figure that was present there was not there. As her father asks if she's satisfied, she sends her father off. She tells him that she's also tired and wishes him a good night, and as she slumps into the bed, she mutters on how she's been daydreaming and having these illusions that are absolutely messing with her mind. As she slowly closes her eyes, she notices something that really catches her attention. She sees a blood stain on the floor, and seeing this, she starts to breathe heavily, and as she literally questions existence itself, the doll, with the creepy voice, lets Tomoko know that this is all not a dream. Tomorrow she has enough, so she doesn't hesitate, and she packs the creepy doll in a bag and decides to throw it away. As she does it, she realizes that over the past week there has been no SNS from anyone's side, and there's no owner of this doll. So she questions if she should just give it to the police or maybe offer it to a shrine nearby. But the dumpster man decides to ask if she's here to throw away the trash. She gives him the bag white doll inside, and as he tosses the bag into the truck, Tomoko quietly stands there, and she realizes that there was obviously a very serious reason that the doll was abandoned in the first place, and she realizes that she should have never gotten close to it. The doll sticks its head and stretches her hand out. Tomoko really gets creeped out, and the doll starts to mutter something, but Tomoko is beyond reasoning at this point, and she dashes, thinking that this is the best that she can do. As the man starts chugging in more trash, he notices that one of the bags has seemingly disappeared, and as he checks the inside, it seems like the machine started to not work properly. So he starts to check everything, and as his supervisor lets the man know to really hurry it up, he decides to push it, and as he does, a hand grabs his arm, and in the very next second, He is pulled with so much force that the man on the driver's seat notices something absolutely horrifying. As he hears a scream, he goes to check and immediately he stops the machine to find that the trash collector man had completely been rearranged from top to bottom, and his entire body was disfigured, and literally it was a sight of pure horror and devil's work. The man is left speechless, and he wonders if he should call the ambulance or the police or something. And from the dead body, a figure emerges, and the doll that Tomoko had thrown away is covered in blood, and she walks out of the truck with a new plan and evil intentions. Now, it has been more than 1 month since Tomoko had thrown away the doll, and one thing has really changed in Tomoko's life. She has lived her normal life, but she has noticed that more and more people have started to disappear. As she checks out another person, she notices that the list is growing again and again. In the class as well, almost no one really has a lot of problems, but still this is a topic that almost everyone talks about. The delinquent trash who really harassed her, it seemed like he was in a traffic incident and was hospitalized, and the school was notified that he would be back. But day by day, Tomoko actually grows more and more curious and fearful, and she wonders if it was truly a traffic incident. As she walks, she realizes that maybe the figure was just a plan to prank her or maybe terrify her. As she walks, she hears some voices of the teachers talking to each other and asking a teacher on whether there was any bullying or any severe accident involved regarding the disappearance. Basically, a few teachers are asking if students are getting disappeared because of some bullying incident, and they are asking if they are related to Tomoko's class since the disappearance and weird things have been happening around that class. Tomoko's homeroom teacher, with an absolute confident tone, says that in her classes there is no bullying whatsoever, and as the 2 other teachers listen to this, deep down they want to laugh. As the teacher exits, both Tomoko and the teacher see each other, and the teacher keeps looking back at the other teachers and decides to ask about something. As they move to a different place, Tomoko is so terrified and so confused that she wants to clarify whether the delinquent trash's incident was really real or something. So she decides to ask her teacher to give her the permission to visit the hospital in which the delinquent trash was hospitalized, but the teacher gets up and adds on how she has noticed that she doesn't really get along with the Aika and the delinquent trash group, and she adds on how it's all because of the cultural festival incident that really landed her into a big pound of trouble and some harassment. She glares at Tomoko, and with an absolute hopeful voice, she lets her know that due to that misunderstanding, she had been mistreated for a long time. Seeing this, poor Tomoko's eyes widen as she hears someone really acknowledging what was wrong, and as the teacher starts to ask even more things about this, Tomoko really agrees that she was treated really poorly. The teacher gently starts to add on how she had talked with the principal, and there's a few things that they're working on, and she really lets Tomoko know that she is genuinely sorry for the misunderstanding that has been caused by the cultural festival, and she keeps smiling and letting her know that she genuinely doesn't blame her for messing up the cultural festival. She even leans forward and places her hand on Tomoko's hand and adds that she can really be friends with the Aika group one more time. Hearing this, the teacher actually stops worrying about everything to show her true colors, and she genuinely seems interested and invested into the life that Tomoko had been living, and she also reminds her that she knows that Tomoko has been having a hard time finding friends. Tomoko lets out her most wholesome and thankful smile of her day. In the restroom, the teacher uses the toilet seat, and as a clacking and loud door opening sound scares her for a second, she asks if there's someone. The door keeps going on, and the teacher wonders if the other stalls are being used or something. But in the next second, from outside the toilet stall, a voice demands the teacher's advice, and it is none other than Tomoko. She asks that she's here to have some advice. She lets the teacher know that she's really broken and she's in trouble and she needs help, and the teacher starts to ask what she's really talking about. Outside, we actually see the terrifying and haunting doll that has been stalking everything that Tomoko has been doing. The doll perfectly mimics Tomoko, and she tells the teacher that she's her friend, and they can really talk to each other. The teacher lets the Tomoko voice know that she could really speak to her later, and the doll, on the other hand, starts to add on how since she's her friend, she should really give her the priority and more time, and she starts to be more persistent. As the teacher starts to show a troubled expression, in the very next second, we actually see the real face of the teacher. With a cold voice, she lets herself know that this is just a pain in the ass. Hearing this, the doll stops for a minute, and the teacher starts to really let out her real colors, and she starts to spew and remark on how Tomoko is too over to think that teacher and student can be friends or something. She screams on top of her lungs and lets Tomoko know that friends are eventually an element of life that are going to drift apart, and there's no guarantee that they can be considered as a lifelong friend. She tells Tomoko that it's not worth clinging on. Saying these words, the teacher actually keeps more and more of her cold tone intact, and she adds on how she should really stop fighting the bullying, and she should really apologize to the bullies and make up. As she exits the toilet stall, she wonders if there's anyone, and when she exits, she sees no one except a little doll that is standing, and for a minute, she is surprised, and she calls out to Tomoko and asks if she had brought the doll or something, or if she's playing a prank. But there is no one else there. All the toilets are empty, and it seems like she was really talking to a doll or something. And from the back, the creepy doll lets the teacher know that she's a liar. As the teacher starts to scream, in the next second, the doll acts so aggressively that she grabs her lips and she tackles her down. As she struggles, she starts to punch the doll, and she screams from below and asks for anyone's help, screaming that the doll is a monster. But in the very next second, the doll does something so cruel that it leaves her shocked. She inserts a literal needle near her lips, and in the very next seconds, something so gruesome starts to take place, and the doll lets the teacher know that all the liars and all the words that come out of her mouth are not needed in this world. As she screams in that restroom, the scene shifts to the other side where Tomoko is, and she questions on how the teacher is actually pretty different from what she had thought. As Tomoko sees Aika for a second, she decides that maybe she'll just hide in the bathroom for the time being. As she enters the bathroom, she notices that there are some screaming sounds coming from inside, and when she opens the door, she sees the teacher, and it is none other than Tomoko who opens the stall door. And in the next second, Tomoko sees a cruel sight that shakes her to her core. The teacher has so many stitches that it literally creates a laughing face onto her face, which showcases the gruesome technique and method that the doll used to imprint her punishment on the people who really are different from what they seem to be and are secretly hurting others. Tomoko drops the teacher back and she moves back, murmuring the teacher's name, and she starts to also notice that the teacher's arms are brutally broken from different points, and Tomoko quickly realizes that this is not the work of a human. This is the same doll that did all the other things, and she starts to scream, letting herself know that she discarded the doll, and there's no way that the doll could be here. But from the side, the doll calls out Tomoko, and when she glances, she sees that the doll is right there, covered with blood, and she glares at Tomoko and she approaches her asking if Tomoko is a liar herself. As the doll stood there, looking at Tomoko, her eyes were absolutely terrifying. Tomoko screamed at the top of her lungs that the doll should stay away. From the back, Aika joined them and asked what the noise and fuss were really about. Tomoko got up and started to push Aika, telling her to get out, and Aika mistakenly thought it was an attack. As Aika realized what had happened to the teacher, she walked over to her. Tomoko, on the other hand, saw that the doll had completely vanished one more time. As they retrieved the body, we traveled back to Tomoko. Her father comforted her and let her know that she shouldn't worry so much. The teacher was out of danger, and the school was going to be closed for a while. As father and daughter talked to each other, his father wished Tomoko a good night. Tomoko, on the other hand, was absolutely petrified of everything. Not only did these incidents keep repeating, they grew more grotesque and more brutal than ever. On top of everything, the doll was starting to target her as well, so she started to blame herself because she was the stupid one who took the doll in the first place and really started to get involved with her. She questioned what she could really do. After a week, it looked like the school had started again, and as she dressed up, she went to school. The first thing she noticed was that the school was really empty, and there were not a lot of students there, obviously because everyone was still kind of spooked out of the horrifying accident that happened to one of the teachers. As Tomoko walked into the class, she started to hear a few girls talk about an urban legend that was similar to this, and as Tomoko heard, she got kind of interested. But, as always, her nemesis Aika was not really kind to her. Aika asked what she was looking at, and Tomoko just lowered her head and went to her seat. She noticed that this time someone greeted her. When she looked back, it was her classmate, and she smiled at Tomoko and started a conversation. Tomoko actually saw that her desk was cleaner than before. As a teacher entered, her homeroom teacher Hyaguri greeted everyone. He let them know that he was going to be the replacement for the stupid teacher they had before. As he started to talk about how he was excited about their future student life and stuff like that, he smiled and let everyone know that they all needed to get along with each other. As he started to take attendance, Tomoko was really moved. Not only had she found her desk to be completely cleaned off, but students around her were treating her like a human for once in a long time. Not only that, she looked at the teacher and noticed that he was better than almost all of the teachers she had previously. The teacher wrote on the board, and it seemed like there was going to be a sports festival in about 2 weeks' time. Aika from the back started to complain about how the culture festival was a bust and that this time everyone needed to do their best. As everyone started to really hype up the sports festival, Tomoko was kind of sad and kind of in a pinch where she didn't really know what to do. As she got a paper on which all the students were marking their interests, a girl asked her from the side if she would be interested in joining a relay race. As the black-haired girl smiled and asked if she would be okay with it, it seemed like Tomoko was down for the task. For the first time in a long time, she got involved with 3 more girls. Tomoko was just sitting there, wondering what was going on. Hidaka was the same girl who previously used to ask favors from Tomoko. After Tomoko really tried her best to be friends with her, Hidaka started to push herself away from her. This time, as Hidaka called out, Tomoko let her know that she was not really athletic, and she asked why Hidaka really put her name in the race. This time, Hidaka lowered her head and apologized for everything, all the isolation that she took part in, and all the bullying that she basically sat there and watched. Hidaka let her know with an electrifying voice that this was a chance for all of them to really outshine and really make up for their losses that happened in the cultural festival. Tomoko also started to not get used to it. All of a sudden, she had these 3 girls who were treating her more like a friend. Hidaka herself was actually more changed and more moved, and she kept telling Tomoko that she would love to have everyone go back to the way they were. As Tomoko quietly marinated with those words, Hidaka asked to have her on their team, and as tears really started to form in Tomoko's eyes, she clenched her skirt and let Hidaka know that she would love to go back to the same situation that they were in. She let her know that she wanted to go back before the culture festival got messed up. Now, all of a sudden, everyone was slowly starting to heal their wounds. Things started to make sense, and Hidaka made Tomoko one of her team members. But on the other hand, Tomoko was not good at sports at all, and she was worried that she might ruin everything. Since it was a big responsibility, she wasn't sure if she could really prove herself, and if she failed again, she would probably be an outcast of the class forever. She covered her face, and as her father checked out one of the papers, he smiled and asked if she was okay with this unusual activity. She, on the other hand, got asked by her father if she was forced or something, and she let him know that she wasn't forced at all. Now, slowly, all of a sudden, she had this goal, and she just made a resolve to herself that she would do it no matter what. The next day, things didn't work out quite the best since she basically did a lapse in 18, while everyone else did an average of 13 to 14. Tomoko was terrible at sports. As she apologized, adding on how she was absolutely useless, Hidaka started to really talk to her about how she should take this into account. But Tomoko saw the teacher and completely ditched the conversation, saying she was going to ask the teacher for some tip. After applying those tips, she dashed one more time, and as always, things were not so good, but still the teacher pushed them and let them know that they should try their best. As all of them complained about being exhausted, Tomoko was the slowest, sluggish, and the most terrible at keeping the pace, and at this rate they could really lose because of her. Now, Hidaka from the back let everyone know that she was happy that the teacher was on their side and everyone was pushing themselves. She smiled and let Tomoko know that she was so happy that she was serious and that was all that mattered. And Tomoko, being an absolute loner, just smiled to herself and let Hidaka know that she was going to do everything to be more useful to the team. She smiled, exclaiming that she was going to do her best, and as she smiled, it finally seemed like Tomoko had found friends who cared for her. Now, as the group left, we again saw the real face of another fake friend. She touched her face, and in the next second, she cried about how Tomoko was an absolute pain in the ass. She remarked on how she was still so depressed, and how she was still begging for friends. She added on how her plan was to use Tomoko to increase her grades and how Tomoko could use herself to escape being an outcast of the class, and she stretched out. She cried to herself that she was going to do whatever she could to really make a good impression and improve her image in front of the teachers. In real life, Hidaka is actually the most selfish human ever, and she is basically just using Tomoko as an excuse to get better grades. Deep down, she is just faking everything as she only cares about her education and her image. From the back, a childish voice called out to her name one more time, and when she glanced back, her eyes widened as she saw a doll-like figure, dressed up properly, asking if she was really a friend of Tomoko. She wondered that maybe a teacher was controlling this doll since the attendance book was with her, and instantly she knew that she had to run no matter what. As she tried to run off, she noticed that her shoes were completely messed up, and from the back, the doll, with her absolutely terrifying and childish voice, asked if she was really a friend. Hidaka started to stutter and stammer around with her words, and she asked if the doll was talking about her being a friend with Tomoko and others. Now she got all sweaty, and she knew that if she answered anything wrong, she could get into trouble. With a troubled expression and absolute fear in her voice, she answered that yes, she was a friend. But the doll quickly leaned over and told her that if she was a liar, then pain would be creeping right next to her and would eventually follow her. As she noticed the scissors right near her throat, she screamed and let the doll know that she and everyone else were friends. She added that sometimes friends could be a pain in the ass. Seeing that the doll had stopped, she started to use her brain more to keep the doll in a loop, and she reminded her that friends can be annoying, and that's why they are called friends, but they can forgive each other in the end. Now, the doll, with a cute and also creepy face, just opened her eyes and asked if they were really friends despite everything, and Hidaka screamed yes, and the doll started to lean into her. Hidaka continued to mutter that they are friends, murdering it over and over again. Hidaka started to tear up, and as she closed her eyes for a minute, the voices kept surrounding her, and when she opened them, the doll was nowhere to be seen. As she got up, she realized that she was in much bigger trouble. The next day, they kept working on their pace and their race. On the other hand, everyone with Tomoko were busy practicing and really honing their skills. As two of the girls called out to Hidaka, they started to talk about different topics, and they shifted their focus to the new teacher. For a minute, she froze. Hidaka, in the back of her mind, knew that the doll was related to the teacher or something, and as the other girls started to talk more and more, Hidaka told them that maybe their break was over and they should really practice. The two girls refused, and with a cold voice, she let them know to stop talking and practice more since both of them were absolutely sluggish and slow, and if they kept up with this pace, they were going to be as slow as Tomoko. As she said this, both of the girls were kind of sad to hear that, and one of the girls fired back and screamed to her that everyone was doing their best and that Hidaka was maybe too cruel with her words. As she took a pause for a minute, they all scattered one more time, and Hidaka was again left speechless because again she was faking everything. As she realized this, she tried to look for her water bottle, and in the very next second, she drank from the water bottle. Inside the bottle, there were blades which cut her tongue, and instantly she spat it out. As she realized the magnitude of this situation, she started to huff for air, and blood kept pouring out of her face. From the side, the doll joined her one more time, and she muttered about how Hidaka was a liar and not a friend. As she dashed away from the doll just looked at her. While she ran for her life, she dashed and dashed. Even after falling on her face, she got up to realize that the doll is tagging her. As she bumped into Tomoko, she asked if she was all right, and she saw that Hidaka was paranoid of something that was haunting her or some sort. The fury was catching up to her, and as she got more and more paranoid of the doll, she smiled to Tomoko one more time, faking that she just had a fight with the two of them and she messed up. She apologized to them, and once again, their wholesome atmosphere surrounded them again. The girls quickly accepted her apology, and in the back of Hidaka's mind, she knew for a fact that she was not safe and had been tagged by the doll, and she needed to get into first place no matter what. That could prove the fact that they were true friends and their friendship bore fruit. As all of them started to practice and follow their usual routines, Hidaka lets Tomoko know that they could also practice during the weekends and maybe nail everything down. In one of the training sessions, Tomoko ended up starting to bleed from her ankles. It was her blisters that kept on rubbing with the shoes, which caused her skin to peel off and really bleed. Hidaka asked if she had gotten new shoes, and as Tomoko again passed out a painful smile, Hidaka, in the back of her head, absolutely despised Tomoko. She added on how she was trying just so hard like a parasite to just stick with them, and she went on and on about her hatred for this. All this creeped up from behind, and even though she smiled, she was pissed at her, she was disgusted at her, and she asked why she was really so desperate about getting into first place. With an absolutely heartwarming voice and tone, Tomoko spoke from her heart and let her know that she wanted to work hard together with her new friends. Hidaka, on the other hand, was not used to this heavy atmosphere and more depressing and desperate attempts that Tomoko had been doing. Although she felt a little bit relieved for a minute, she still wasn't really used to this. Finally, the day of the sports festival was here, and as the teachers lined up, everyone was ready, and the homeroom teacher himself came to Hidaka and let them know that he was counting on them. As Hidaka's spirit was high and mighty, she was ready to really get the first place, but she was still a little nervous as her hand kept shaking here and there. As Tomoko comforted her, the festival was about to start, and all four were about to make a name for themselves. The time for them to shine was here, and as their relay race was on the mark, all four of them were responsible for taking the baton and running as fast as they can and win the first place. As Hidaka reached for her handband, she noticed that something pierced her hand, and when she brought out her hand, there were needles mixed with her handband, and she quickly threw the handband. She knew that the doll was warning her to be more efficient with her words and her statements, and she knew that the doll wanted her to win. As she tied the handband, everyone got ready, and this race was going to determine whether the words and the fake friend persona that Hidaka had all over her were real or fake. As the race started, one of the girls dashed and managed to place into third place, and this was enough for Hidaka because she knew that the next lineup was better, and they could really push the rank. Kyo herself made a comeback. She gave her all, and it was Tomoko's turn to have the baton. The baton in Kyo's hand were about to make contact, and Hidaka knew that even if Tomoko didn't do her best, she could really cover up the mess. As Tomoko quickly came, Kyo placed the baton on Tomoko's outstretched hand, and in the very next second, the baton fell from both of their hands, and Hidaka's eyes widened from disappointment and fear as it fell down. The announcer screamed that Class A had dropped the baton, and Hidaka, on the other hand, was out in the wild. She had cold sweat running all over her body, and she knew that this was her last lifeline to really make it out of the lie that she had said earlier. As Kyo started to add on how Tomoko didn't grip the baton really hard, Hidaka screamed out with a thunderous voice and yelled, screaming at both of them, and she started to dash, trying to make a comeback. All of the other classmates were starting to remark on how they had already failed, and Tomoko was having a hard time running. Hidaka was questioning who could have dropped this. She started to really get paranoid, wondering if they were going to lose. If they were going to lose, then the doll that had been haunting her and really pushing their boundaries could creep up to her and confront her on the things that she had said. As the moment was right on the corner, Kyo gave her the baton, and as she dashed, she was ready to give her all to really make it to at least second place. She dashed, giving her all, and the announcer started to shout about how Class A was catching up. Tomoko cheered as hard as she could, and Hidaka herself threw away all her worries, and gave her all, but unexpectedly, she tripped on her own leg. As the entire crowd just stopped for a second, Hidaka fell right on her face, and the remaining contestants made it to the front line. Hidaka stood in dirt and humiliation, in fear, now waiting for the deadly trial. After the relay ended, Hidaka was holding her head and muttering why over and over again. When Tomoko asked her about this, Hidaka was just on top of her head, having left all her kindness and politeness out in the field. She started to just scream at everyone, asking who had dropped the baton. She first blamed Tomoko about this. Tomoko asked that she didn't do it, and maybe Hidaka was mistaken, and she kept asking why Kyo had dropped the baton. As everyone else started to notice the fight, Kyo was starting to get more humiliated, and everyone started to make up this conspiracy that maybe Kyo used too much force to give the baton to Tomoko. As Hidaka just started to lose it, she grabbed Kyo's shoulder and screamed. Kyo, on the other hand, started to add on how Hidaka had been having these strange mood shifts, and she'd been more scary and more terrifying. Kyo added that she worked really hard and did everything she could, and she really joined the team because Hidaka was there for them and really with them the whole time. As their talk just started to make absolutely no sense, there was jealousy, there was hatred, and there were other things. Kyo started to add on how both of them practiced alone. Basically, Kyo was angry and upset on the fact that Hidaka really gave her guidance and training to Tomoko more, and she cried that if she would have gotten the same chance, she would have done better, much better than all. Hidaka was absolutely menacing over this. She was disgusted and she asked if Kyo was frustrated over something so small like that. As Kyo's eyes widened, she was just right out of track. She was not listening to anyone. She was showing her selfish colors and just hating on everything. As everyone else started to make fun of Kyo, and things were starting to turn more sour, it was becoming more and more like a humiliating session for poor Kyo, and as tears started to overflow, Kyo lost it, asking if this is their last time as friends. As the teacher joined the conversation, he clapped his hands and told everyone to go back to their class tent. He called out to Hidaka and told her to come up with him to have a talk. Hidaka, on the other hand, started to freak out, questioning if she was going to die by the doll just like this, and she kept scratching her head. As Tomoko gave her a glass of water, Hidaka was so paranoid that she started to see blades in every form of liquid. She tossed the water that was completely fine, and she rushed off. Everyone started to notice that she was freaking over a plain glass of water. She dashed and dashed, screaming that she was going to be killed, and she decided to hide. As she went into a classroom with pitch-black darkness, she entered a more isolated place where not even her screams could be heard, and as she figured to herself that she was finally away from danger, but from the back, the doll with her creepy and scary eyes muttered to her that her tricks and her lies were just too bad. Hidaka screamed, and as the doll tackled her, she let her know that she knew from day one that they were not friends with Tomoko. Hidaka started to cry and make up things, screaming that friends fight and she was going to really make up with them. The doll asked if she was then really firm on her standpoint, and she asked if she is such a wonderful friend, then she could also risk her life for them. As she said this, in the very next second, the doll started to twist her bones in the most uncomfortable and unusual manner. As she did this, she basically crippled her wrist, and as the clock ticked, the doll moved her tiny hands down her bones and she started to twist her bones slowly and in absolute painful way that's not even possible to describe. The doll with the creepy voice muttered to herself that she really hoped that her real friend could find Tomoko. Tomoko still noticed that Hidaka had not been around anyone. As she asked the teacher, he shook his head and added that he could not find her as well, and she could find her on her own. As Tomoko ran around trying to find her, she noticed that the warehouse door was open, and as she entered, the warehouse was completely fine. There was no mess, everything was clean. She entered and asked if Hidaka was here, and as she looked around, she noticed that she was not there as well, but a strange box was right near her, and as her eyes caught it, she saw a black strap that was similar to what Hidaka had on her head. As she started to realize the grave thing that was right there, she with fearful and shaky hands decided to open the box, and inside, she found the most disturbing sight that she could have thought. Hidaka was there, unconscious, her lips completely sealed as the doll used the same methods that she did with the teacher, and what was more brutal was her bones and her structure, which was completely twisted from top to bottom, and it was like a package of bones that is impossible to really think with a human mind. Seeing this, she absolutely froze, and she let out this deafening scream for help. As she started to call out to Hidaka, she started to tell her that she was going to call for help, and Hidaka couldn't talk at all, and as Tomoko quickly noticed that Hidaka was wide awake as well, she called the ambulance. When they were going outside, the ambulance dragged away Hidaka, and as they were taking her away, she told Tomoko with a terrifying and weak voice to be careful of the doll, and hearing this, Tomoko knew that the doll was involved, and she started to grab her head. On the other hand, the bullies were surprised to see that the school was closed one more time, and as Yuri remarked on how he was happy that everything was meeting his expectations, he showed them the picture of how Hidaka was absolutely immobilized and paralyzed from every joint. As he started to notice that there was a pattern to this, he added that maybe this anomaly might be happening to the people who are really the false friends that always rise to the top of everything. Now, Yuri is a trash who is infamous for ruining people's lives using his sharp tone and manipulative behavior. As one of the maids gave him some food, he started to complain about how he didn't order this, and as the waitress apologized, he quickly brought out his phone and started to film her, and he started to add on how the waitress had purposely tried to kill him, and he started to film everything that she did. The waitress, on the other hand, started to apologize, and as Aika told him to stop harassing people, Yuri was one of those brains that are just born evil from nature. On the other hand, the bullies were in their own world, figuring out a few things. Tomoko knew what was happening, and her father messaged that she needed to buy some soy sauce, and she needed to go out and fetch it so they could really make it to the dinner on time. As she went out, she muttered on how she was afraid to really leave her place. She quietly cycled through the town, and a black car was right near her place, and as two masked figures watched, they muttered that she was the person. As the car made a turn, in the very next second, the car closed in, and a man grabbed Tomoko, and quickly they shoved her inside the black car, and as she struggled, a woman reminded her that if she struggled too much, it was going to be worse for her. On the other hand, a man told someone that they had caught Tomoko, and as we see a man covered with a bandage was sitting with most of his fingers missing. He mutters that he was going to kill Tomoko. From the brutal condition of this person, we learn that it was none other than the delinquent trash that the doll had completely dismembered. As the group of people brought Tomoko inside a place, they were serious people, and she frankly was not handling it very well. The delinquent trash covered with bandages approached her with a pissed expression. He hit her with his crutches, and he screamed to her with a threatening tone that she needed to bring out her doll, and he screams that tonight he was going to destroy both her and the doll. As she realized the sound of the delinquent trash, she called out to him, and he glared at her with an absolutely disgusted glare and told her that she was the reason that he had ended up with this situation. He reminded her that the doll was hers and he remembers throwing it away in the pool, and as he started to choke her, she apologized, muttering that she didn't know where the doll was, and he pushed her down. As one of the girls approached and asked if she had any leads, the delinquent trash started to explain on how the doll was obsessed with her friends, and anyone who got involved with her ended up getting attacked by her. So the girl asked if the doll would attack her if they held her as a hostage, and as she muttered yes, the delinquent trash finally got a lead, and he reminded her that now he was going to lure the doll using her, and it was going to be her turn to be crippled for life. He started to corner her even more, and she screamed that she wouldn't run away, and she also let him know that she also wanted the doll to stop. But as they started to beat her even more, he screamed on how he was not going to let his guard down on her one more time. He let her know that he was going to reclaim his lost dignity, and he was just going to smash and crush both of them into bits. As Tomoko was held in that place for a while, she was asked by the other girl if she had contacted her parents, and as she agreed, one of the other dudes with weird piercings added that he had some torture methods that he would like to try if the doll won't show up on time. As he started to mark on the ideology of the delinquent trash, he added that dolls and ghosts are just not real and they're just fiction created by fearful people. He looked at the delinquent trash and asked how his injuries got this worse, and he added that maybe the delinquent trash pissed the wrong gang and they just wanted to ruin his life or something. As he obviously started to take it more easy, they were more relaxed and more casual than ever, and as they were talking about her friends, in the very next second, the entire warehouse went pitch black, and a blackout ignited and started the brutal punishment series that the doll was about to make the bullies go through. As the piercing dude started to add on how he was going to check, he went out to the breaker side where the old electricity connections were connected to, and from the side, the doll with a serious tone let the piercing dude know that he should not turn on the lights at all. As he got creeped out, he asked if someone had brought it here, and he was pretty surprised on how a doll like her can speak so fluently, and as he ignored her, the doll brought out the nail gun, and in the very next second, the entire warehouse was filled with screams. As everyone noticed, the delinquent trash himself stood out to check, only to find that the piercing dude had even more piercings. Dozens of nails were impaled and penetrated into his two eyes, and the delinquent trash knew that things were going to go south from here. As the doll creepily asked everyone if they were friends, the doll had started her mission to eradicate all the bullies and trash who tried to harass Tomoko in one way or another. As everyone started to notice the voice, the piercing dude cried on how it was painful and he questioned what was happening to him. The doll started to move, and the delinquent trash started to attack her in pitch-black darkness, but it was pretty bad as he just swung his broken arms like an idiot. As they questioned slowly, the doll started to attack 2 more guys, and as they got a piece of the doll's wrath, she took them down with one attack. As they fell down, the doll began asking if Tomoko's new friends were fake and if they were going to abandon Tomoko and run. As more and more people lost their sight, the doll reminded everyone that friends should help each other, and as the doll tackled other thug, she was seconds away to blind him forever, but one of the girls intervened, and she screamed to her that she was his friend and she would even risk her own life for their friendship. As the doll's eyes widened, seeing that a person was ready to sacrifice herself for others, she called him a good girl and she started to hammer down the nails in her eyes as well, proving the fact that the doll was absolutely a menace, and she did not care about anyone except her Tomoko. She looked at everyone, and she, with a chilling voice, let everyone know that all their friends were going to die today. The delinquent trash ended up starting to take up the tension, and he started to swing his crutches, but the doll was having the best of him, and using her small size as an advantage, she sneaked behind him, and she started to attack his calves with nails. He falls down from the pain, and moments later, his face got closer to the nail gun. As she was about to pull the trigger, Tomoko did the most unexpected thing, and she jumped in and saved the delinquent trash. As both of them stopped for a minute, the delinquent trash used this chance, and he snatched the nail gun from the doll's hand, and he started to punch the doll using the nail gun. As he smacked the doll, he punched it and kicked it even more, but the doll was not going to go back down so soon. She quickly grabbed his remaining fingers, and she broke it easily, and she quickly took the gun back, and she started shooting at him one more time. But as he fell down, he ended up knocking a bottle full of gasoline, and as the gasoline started to overflow, the worst possible scenario, the worst possible combination, ended up happening, and a little ember lit a fire right near everyone. As everyone saw the fire and realized on how messed up everything was starting to be, they dashed outside, and once again delinquent trash lost to Tomoko. Basically, he was going to get the doll and Tomoko in one place, and he was going to tie them up and burn them alive, but it all failed miserably as the doll had pushed him into the place where they had stored all the gasoline, and it somehow ended up igniting with a cigarette's ember. As the worst possible thing started to take place, everyone started to run, and the delinquent trash himself started to search for his crutches, but someone knocked them over. As one of his friends started to run, the trash asked for help, but he ended up making a troubled voice and muttered that he should be able to help himself. He can't do it, and he started to scream sorry over and over again, and as he dashed outside, the doll once again reminded him that he was not a friend to anyone and he himself didn't have any friends. As he started to mutter over and over again about how she should shut up, the doll, with an absolutely childish and sad voice, let the delinquent trash know that he had so many friends but none of them were real. She started to empty more of the nails, and she even started to use it near his crotch, and as he screamed, he grabbed the doll by her hair, and he pushed her inside the fire, and he screamed on top of his lungs that if he was going to die, he was going to take her with him. As Tomoko barely made it outside, she noticed that the delinquent trash was still trapped inside, and seeing this, she strangely ended up having this craving to help him out. Since she was also responsible for ruining his life, she started to find another way to enter inside, and as she tried to find a solution, she noticed that there was a hose, and as she turned on the water, she entered the place, and she started to put out the fire. But as she walked inside, she found the doll, which was absolutely covered in black ashes since she was burning, and she called out to her. Tomoko's eyes just widened at this point, and as the doll weakly approached her, she started to cry that Tomoko was her only friend. As she stretched out her tiny hand, it seemed like the doll that was haunting everyone was just trying to fill up the void, the gap, the absolute misery Tomoko was enduring, and the doll itself was maybe perhaps a victim of something, as we saw a sad sight of a literal cursed girl stretching her hand out, muttering that a human was her friend. In the very next second, we saw her head get smacked as a crutch crushes her head in pieces, and the delinquent trash finally got the doll. Finally, he did his thing, and as he went out cold, Tomoko finally caught him, and both of them ended up wetting themselves to really limit the amount of heat absorption, and the doll, on the other hand, was left broken and alone. After a long time, Tomoko finally opened her eyes, and as she came to her senses, she called out to her father, and in the very next second, he jumped to her and hugged her, and it really showed that his father was absolutely worried for her. He screamed on what really happened and why was she there of all the places, and he started to yell, asking why she would lie to him about such a big thing, and he basically started to let out his fatherly worries. As the homeroom teacher calmed the father of Tomoko, he asked what was happening and what everything was about. As Tomoko started to realize what things were going on around her, she lowered her head and let her father know that everything that had happened to the people was all because they got involved with her and a doll. The doctor from the back reminded them that the delinquent trash's injuries were very severe, and currently he was in ICU, and it would take a long time for him to really recover and maybe even be able to speak again. As she lowered her eyes even more, after 1 month she returned back to school, and as she entered, she noticed that the students were in a much rougher condition, and they were starting to really talk about the recent event that happened, and the word got out that Tomoko was also in the abandoned factory fire. It seemed like students were starting to connect the dots and added on how Tomoko was present when Hidaka was brutally tortured and when the teacher had her eyes and lips stitched together. As they started to really come up with the conclusion, they added that maybe Tomoko was perhaps cursed or something. As she heard this, a cold shiver ran down her spine, and she looked ahead to the students, and they were looking at her with very disgusted and troubled eyes. The infamous trash and the master manipulator, Yuri, ended up showing everyone a picture of the doll that had been hurting all of the people that were involved in the several incidents that happened over the last few weeks, and he also brought out the same picture of that same doll that the delinquent trash had, and he reminded everyone that they took this picture weeks and weeks before these incidents really started to happen. He explained on how the doll actually belonged to Tomoko in the first place, and he started to do his job. He brought out his stupid camera and started to record, and just like his manipulation tactic worked the last time, the effects were immense and the students started to pick up the pace and they started to bring out so many words. Cruel, devastating, and absolutely terrifying comments about her. For a minute, she remembered that this was just like her last time, but this time, this was going to be at a much larger scale, and the damage was going to literally make her impossible to stand or work around with. They started to shower hateful words at her over and over again, and seeing everything, she just started to fall into this abyss of pure darkness and depression. As Aika started to add in as well, things were so bad that in the very next second, everyone started to record and verbally abuse her, and they started to throw things at her, from pens to books to everything that they could get a hand on. As they started to outcast her even more publicly to a much more extreme degree, one of the girls involved threw a bag which had sharp scissors in it, and as the homeroom teacher intervened, this part ended right here. As the teacher intervened, he screamed at the top of his lungs, asking if the students had finally lost it. As everyone stopped, they quickly realized that they were actively doing something extremely horrible to another classmate. The teacher told everyone to withdraw and sit in their chairs. He told the students that whoever threw things at her will visit the faculty office later, no matter what. The teacher began the class and announced that several people were feeling unwell and had to be absent because of that. As Tomoko was hearing this, she started to think about how this was actually her fault in the end. As she noticed a rather mysterious stare, she looked to her right side and noticed a girl staring at her with a really angry expression. Tomoko quickly wondered if she was angry at her because of the things that had been happening. The teacher quickly started to announce a school trip which will be happening, and he added how they will most likely be taking a different route from all the other classes. The class was silent because they were starting to feel like outcasts. The teacher started to explain how the rumors and myths have been circulating to almost everyone, and they are too afraid to risk everything. As the students started to cry about how they have friends in the other classes, the teacher basically told everyone that despite them not sharing a similar route, he encouraged everyone to instead make friends in their own class. After the class ended, everyone was obviously kind of shocked but still happy because they were going on a school trip, and any student would enjoy a good vacation away from their regular routines. As everyone started to make groups, they started to isolate Tomoko. At this point, from the back, the teacher asked if there was any group that Tomoko could perhaps join. The entire class just went silent one more time. The teacher noticed a group which had a few seats available and asked if they would be interested in taking in a person. The two girls looked at their teacher. They were panicking and had very scared expressions, basically wanting to cut off all connections. But the teacher insisted, adding how this is a perfect chance for them to kill the awkward air and maybe form friendships that could last a long time. As the teacher requested them, one of the students just lowered her head, adding that they will do whatever the teacher wants. As Tomoko snuggles in, she apologizes, adding that she is going to count on the two of them. From the side, one of the girls muttered to herself that this is seriously the worst. From the back, the girl who was staring at Tomoko aggressively earlier looked up closely. Kara was emitting this hideous atmosphere, which was rather creepier than normal. As a group of 4 was finally made, all of the group members felt it was extremely awkward despite them trying their best to make friends with Tomoko, but almost everyone hated her. As Kara herself finally speaks up, she looks to her side and asks Tomoko if, because of the doll that was linked to her, their friend got hurt. Tomoko just lowered her head as she added that it is true. All the cases that were connected to a few days ago, including the bullying case, were all done by the doll that Tomoko had brought. As Kara started to wonder if she is the next person, immediately from the back, the 2 girls started to go crazy, asking what the hell she can do. She asked if she is also going to get sewn by the doll and would get needles pierced into her skin to be formed into a certain thing. She started to get paranoid, but Tomoko said that the delinquent trash had already killed the doll and there is no need to fear anything anymore. As she looks up, asking if that is really true, Tomoko started to add how she herself saw the doll getting broken into several pieces. She added that there is no way any form of existence could last after getting destroyed into such small matter. As she said this, one of the girls from the group just glared at Tomoko, adding how all the cursed and bad things are only attached to her. As they made Tomoko feel like an absolute piece of trash, she smiled, telling everyone that she will make sure to stay as far as possible from them and not disturb their lives. As all 3 of the girls requested her to do this, Tomoko wondered if she is allowed to travel on this school trip despite all the incidents. She asked if it would be better for everyone if she did not go. As she was thinking about this, she had to visit the hospital for her arm. There, she ends up running into Hidaka and her mom. As she notices her, she calls out her name and Tomoko just freaks out. Hidaka's mother asks if she is a friend or something. Hidaka tells her mother that she has something important to talk to her friend about and she would most likely need some time away. As her mother leaves, they sit for a few moments on the hospital bed. Without wasting any time, Hidaka asks if everything that had happened to her is because of the doll. Hidaka started to explain how she saw the group line chat and how everyone was talking about the doll she had, and how it was the main cause of all the incidents and brutal punishment. As Tomoko was hearing this, she immediately lowered her head, screaming that she is sorry. Just a few weeks ago, she had picked up this mysterious doll which looked pretty interesting to her, and she decided to take care of it. That doll turned out to be something supernatural, and every time someone makes Tomoko feel terrible, the doll ends up taking its anger out on the other person. As she explained this, Hidaka was obviously taking this in, wondering how exactly that happens. With a really mature expression, she asked if that is the case, and Tomoko started to apologize, adding that because of her, Hidaka got involved. She cried that she was so scared to face the consequences of her actions that she couldn't even visit Hidaka after she was hospitalized for the brutal punishment. With a really gentle voice, Hidaka said that because Tomoko had found her in that warehouse, she was able to live. As Tomoko looked up, Hidaka started to add how the doll was testing her and wondering if she even has any friends who would look for her. As she cried about how she mistreated her and didn't ever think of her as a friend, she thanked Tomoko for coming to her despite not being too close. As she does this, a sad atmosphere surrounded them. Hidaka asked if she is ready for the school trip and made a rather mysterious request, asking that she would like Tomoko to bring a souvenir for her. As both of them smiled at each other, Tomoko, who was considering not going, all of a sudden wanted to travel on this trip and buy a souvenir only for Hidaka. On the other hand, as a few detectives check out the warehouse where a massive brawl broke out and a fire went out, they added that there is nothing to be so scared about. But as they kept looking, they were pretty creeped out about their weird supernatural problems and how almost every victim of this brawl kept wondering about a doll of some sort. But as they added, they made sure to notice that there was no doll or remains found at the site. The next day, as the entire class was boarding the buses and were ready to enjoy their trip, everyone started to notice that Tomoko had joined as well. The class started to murmur that she has the nerve to actually participate in something like this when she actually ruined everyone's plans. Tomoko, on the other hand, was really stuck on her souvenir no matter what. Although she was going to suffer a lot of bullying, she still decided to just face it head-on. The teacher introduced how this is going to be a 4-day and 3-night school trip. He added that they're going to do a lot of sightseeing and a lot of enjoyment. The students, on the other hand, started to mutter about how all the other classes were going to amusement parks or somewhere better, while they were stuck looking at some boring mountains. As they complained, the teacher just kept going on about how they were going to lodge around 5 p.m. He added that they're truly going to have a fun school trip, but the entire class was not having it at all. As everyone made their groups on the bus, she was all alone. Even during the lunch breaks, she was not allowed to eat with any of her group girls, as she actively suffered from bullying. The teacher kept noticing this, but obviously, he could not intervene as it would bring her more attention and more problems. As things started to get more and more serious, it was soon time for them to check into their hotels and sleep. The teacher told everyone to check into their accommodations and leave their luggage inside so they could gather in the main hall to have a fun time. As each group got their rooms, Tomoko joined in, and all the while the girls wanted to let her know that it's her fault they're on this trip in an unknown and unpleasant place. They kept crying about how bugs would be there and other problems. Tomoko told them that she would need to use the toilet right away so she wouldn't have to make any contact with anyone. As she was about to do this, immediately from the back, Aika shouted Tomoko's name at the top of her lungs, and everyone quickly gathered around. She asked why the hell she would even come to this place when everyone despised her. Aika just grabbed her tie, asking if she can even read the room. Tomoko was already broken, feeling she was not to blame and that there was nothing wrong with her situation anymore. As she said this, Aika told her that she should stop being a victim and that she doesn't give a damn about any dolls. As she cried about how her fun time was being ruined by Tomoko's existence, she added that she's freakier than any human flesh she had ever seen. She immediately shoved her into a cabinet, and as she fell, Aika locked her inside from the outside. She told her that she's an eyesore and maybe she should remain here for the time being. They started to put weight around the door and made sure to lock her inside. As the girls from Tomoko's group started to talk to Aika, they added that they have no connection with Tomoko whatsoever and they would also like to join their girl gang to enjoy this trip to the fullest. As the idol girls invited everyone, they just stargazed and then quietly left her in the darkness. As she was actively struggling, she cried for anyone to help her out. Kara, although she could have helped, just made a bad expression, knowing that if she helped Tomoko right now, she herself was going to get into trouble, so she quietly left. As Tomoko started to realize that everyone had left, she just stayed in the pitch-black darkness, asking if there's anyone who's actually going to help her in this situation. Since she also wanted to use the toilet, she was helpless. Then, she heard a footstep and immediately started to shout at the top of her lungs, asking if there was anyone who could help her to please open the door. As the footsteps approached, she wondered if everyone was back or something. Tomoko thought that maybe someone from the faculty team was here to double-check everything, as she could not get out of the cabinet. Immediately the door unlocked. As Tomoko saw that the door was unlocked and could be opened from the other side, she looked closely, but there was no one outside. As Tomoko's heartbeat skyrocketed, she realized that maybe her nemesis was waiting for her outside. She asked, "Who exactly is outside?" On the other side, all the girls were enjoying themselves, asking if the banquet hall was nearby and if their food was going to be delicious. On the other hand, Kara started to feel that it had been hours since Tomoko was away, and maybe it was time for her to check on her. She decided to go back. As it was raining a lot, Aika kept complaining about how this trip is a bad luck situation for everyone. From inside the cabinet, Tomoko asked someone to open the door, particularly calling out Kara's full name. As Tomoko kept persisting, Kara thought about how many people had been hurt, and she started to go crazy. She started to add that Hidaka was hurt because of her stupidity, and she cried about how she wanted to enjoy everything with Hidaka and everyone else. But Tomoko had ruined everything for their group and made her miserable and terrified of everything. As she said this, she cursed aggressively. When she realized that she had said something terrible, she immediately covered her mouth. As she opened the door, it led to an empty place. There was no one there. Noticing that the luggage and the chair had actually been moved, she started to ask if Tomoko herself opened the door. As she moved closer, there was no one in the cabinet. As the life left Kara's body, she slowly lowered her head as thunder greeted her. The doll was standing right there. As the doll quietly looked at Kara, it asked if she wants to be friends. On the other hand, as Tomoko just used the toilet and rejoined the room, she added that she wanted to get her phone no matter what. When she opened the door, she immediately noticed that the rain kept getting worse and thunder struck harder than anything. She got her phone and saw that, on the bed, there was a suitcase which was full and giving off a really mysterious and dark, satanic vibe. As she went absolutely silent, she noticed that there were hairs sticking out. Being terrified, she started to realize that the doll was gone and there's no way it should be back. As Tomoko just opened the door, she saw that Kara was inside, and this time her lips were stitched shut, and her clothes themselves were also stitched together. As she saw this gruesome scene, she let out a big, deafening scream. Tomoko was really quick to help her. As she asked Kara if she was alright, Kara started to cry that it hurt so much. Tomoko quickly helped her up and grabbed a pair of scissors to cut the stitches on her lip. As she did this, Tomoko asked what had happened, and immediately Kara screamed that she's a liar and the doll is still alive. As she said this, she started to blame Tomoko, adding that this is all her fault. Quickly, Kara lowered her voice, remembering that if she continued her attitude like this with Tomoko, she was going to suffer, so she apologized. As Tomoko started to say that the doll was broken and burned to a crisp, The teacher, on the other hand, was dealing with the students. Tomoko rushed to him and screamed that there was an emergency. As the teacher asked what had happened, he quickly looked at Kara's injury. Tomoko added that the doll had attacked Kara a few moments ago. As the teacher started to realize this, the class went crazy and they decided to take matters into their own hands. All the students started to scream, and one of the girls shouted that she doesn't want to die. Everyone else started to panic and decided to point their fingers at Tomoko once again since she was the cause of everything. As the teacher told everyone to calm themselves down and go back to their rooms, he guided Kara to another room where he would disinfect her injuries. Both once again talked about what exactly had happened and why there were so many injuries around her body. As the teacher actually accepted the fact that there is an entity actively disturbing the peace, Kara asked if the teacher believed them. The teacher just lowered his head, adding that as a teacher, he doesn't 100% believe it, but since everything is happening and there are so many witnesses, he might be able to look into this. As Tomoko kept persisting that they need to leave, the teacher shared the news that the roads are blocked because of the heavy rainstorm and they cannot really leave safely at this point. Since their route back was gone, they were stuck with the doll and the terrible weather. The teacher added that for now they should just return to their rooms, not do anything, and just rest. As they left, on the other side, Yuri and the other group started to say that Tomoko is just a piece of trash who is ruining everything for them, and maybe they need to throw her out. From the back, Yuri explained to everyone that it's the opposite. They need to treat Tomoko better so the entire class gets along with her, and this way they all can be safe. As the trash Yuri started to manipulate everyone, his main goal was perhaps to make everyone in the class a target of the doll so he could quietly remind himself to not get caught in this dangerous haunting session. As one of the boys who was present with Yuri heard footsteps, he questioned why someone was outside when everyone should be in their rooms. As we see outside, the doll was walking with a menacing look, ready to pass judgment on anyone who was going to hurt Tomoko. Now, as Tomoko finally returns to her room, immediately two of the other girls from her group screamed at the top of their lungs about how she was lying from the beginning, making them believe that there was no doll in the first place. Tomoko started to apologize, obviously not knowing what was happening herself. The two girls started to add how that was not going to cut it, and one of the girls speculated that maybe there is more than one doll. They thought they could be haunted and linked to only one entity or something like that. As pitch-black silence surrounded the place, Tomoko wondered if it was the doll or something else. As she was going to open the door, Kara came back holding 4 lunchboxes filled with food. The mood started to brighten up in the room since no one needed to go down to the banquet hall. One of the girls didn't wait for a single minute. She lowered her head and apologized, saying she was sorry for not opening the closet sooner and letting Tomoko suffer in that pitch-black darkness for a while. Tomoko accepted her apology. On the other hand, the other 2 girls were extremely scared and fearful of the situation. As they left the room to find courage, one of them followed the other to use the restroom. As the 2 girls started to use the toilet, the one with glasses realized there was no toilet paper. She asked her friend to throw some to her, and a roll of toilet paper came flying from the side. The girl told her friend with the glasses that she was about to throw it, but the girl with glasses made a terrified expression. She realized that her friend, who was supposed to throw the toilet paper, hadn't thrown it yet. In fact, someone else did, and she panicked. She immediately opened the door screaming, asking what the freak was going on, and dashed outside. She ended up tripping and falling, hitting her nose. As she looked up, she saw the white figure of a doll. The doll asked the girl in a creepy tone if she was a friend and if she had left her behind. The girl's eyes widened and she screamed at the top of her lungs. The teacher noticed this and immediately dashed outside to check on the girl. As he grabbed her, the teacher himself noticed a black figure leaving from the side, which was enough to confirm the speculation that a doll was present with everyone. At this point, the girl with the glasses realized the doll is connected to Tomoko. Since she mistreated her, she felt the doll would return if she kept acting cruelly and harshly. She immediately dashed back to the room. When Tomoko and Kara were both there, the girls knelt down, apologizing for leaving her behind. They started to cry, saying they were bad people and felt sad about it. One of the girls added that she could buy Tomoko any drink she wanted from the vending machine. As they started to become overly friendly, people decided to give her gift. Tomoko's phone itself started to ring with a lot of messages and calls. People were adding that they wanted to be her friend and wanted to talk. She started to realize that everyone was fearful and treating her differently because they were afraid of the doll. After this, Tomoko and everyone went to sleep. The next day, the teacher called an early morning meeting and announced that due to the heavy rain and flooding, many roads were shut off to keep people safe. He explained that their main focus for a few days would be indoor studies and activities. The teacher wanted everyone to know that they would leave as soon as the roads were safer to travel on. As everyone started to eat, Tomoko noticed that no one was bothering her like they did on the first day. This time, everyone was isolated and watching everything they did. One of the girls from another table got up, approached Tomoko, and greeted her with a bright smile. She asked if Tomoko had gotten any sleep since the thunder was crazy yesterday. Seeing this, two other guys approached, making weird jokes. Tomoko started to notice how weird it was that everyone was being too friendly. More and more people surrounded her as if she were the main attraction of the class. One of the other girls, Kia, who was extremely terrible to Tomoko the other day, also approached. She apologized for getting carried away yesterday and bumping into Tomoko on purpose. Seeing the overly affectionate behavior of everyone, Tomoko asked if they were all just afraid of the doll and if that was the reason they were becoming close to her. She told everyone it was best for them to not get involved with her in the first place, as that would leave them in a much safer environment. When everyone heard this, they cried out that if they didn't get involved with her, their chances of getting hurt would stay high. They kept insisting that they were not just acting and were generally impressed and wanted to be her friend. One of them said a stupid line, calling out to Aika and saying that if she had something to say, she should say it to Tomoko. Aika, on the other hand, just looked at her and got up immediately. As she came closer, she threw a glass of water on Tomoko's head. With a cold voice, she asked if Tomoko was expecting her to be kind just because there was some damn curse going on. She added that she would not compromise her principles and left with that promise. The idle girl, who just followed her at this point, started screaming as well as she followed Aika out. Everyone else asked if Tomoko was okay and offered her towels and tissues to clean herself. The entire class's goal at this point was to get along with Tomoko no matter what and not make her angry during this trip. They wanted her to feel safe and happy so they wouldn't suffer any problems. Tomoko told everyone she wasn't going to worry that much. Yuri was watching from the back, knowingly staying sharp to not get too involved with Tomoko, as it would bring him attention and put him on the doll's watch list. A few of the other guys added that they could get a sigh of relief if they made friends and created class unity, which would decrease the chances of being attacked by the doll. Back with Aika, as the girls went back to their rooms, they tried to make up with her. One of the girls had been overly friendly with Tomoko and had even called for Aika to make friends with her, which Aika didn't like at all. As she was apologizing, everyone added that Aika should also be a friend to Tomoko since they are classmates and need to get along because of the doll problem. Aika asked if they had any shame since they were acting totally different just a few days ago and now they were trying to be good people. She started to roast them, reminding them of their values and the disgusting things they were doing. Things started to get heated, and one of the boys screamed at the top of his lungs that they didn't want to be attacked and were focusing on survival, not moral classes. Things got so intense that one of the boys grabbed Aika's luggage and threw it outside in the rain. He threatened Aika that if she didn't do what they wanted, things would get bad for her. Aika became serious and told the man he needed to pick it up. The next day, as Tomoko was going to the banquet hall, the girls around her were treating her like some sort of saint. As they opened the door to the banquet hall, they found Aika sitting on the ground with food spilled all over her hair and clothes. Tomoko just saw this. Her eyes were on the class role model whom everyone used to look at with respect and admiration. The guy who had harassed Aika a day ago was now making fun of her. He added that maybe she should be careful and clean everything up. Aika was sitting there embarrassed, and when she saw Tomoko, she gave a really pissed expression. From the back, the useless idol joined in and screamed about what exactly was going on. Since everyone was against Aika at this point, they claimed the food got spilled on her by accident. Things were starting to get out of hand. One of the girls decided to use this opportunity to be an overly positive person for Tomoko and screamed that Aika was devising a plan to hurt her, so they decided to punish her. One of the guys gave a glass of water to Tomoko and invited her to take her revenge for everything Aika had done. He reminded her how Aika would usually dump water on her and told her this was the time to pay her back for all those awful things. Tomoko faced a difficult decision but just apologized and told everyone she could not do this. She said she never wanted to do that. Instead, she put the glass of water to the side and approached Aika. She asked if she was doing okay. Aika made a pissed expression, shook her off, and told her it was disgusting that she was keeping up this act. She told Tomoko that if she was so obsessed with her, she should not do this to anyone. She cried and told Tomoko that she had tampered with all of her feelings and she could never forgive her for this. As Aika left with the idol girl, Tomoko just stood there wondering what Aika meant. Aika went to her room to clean herself. On the other hand, the idol girl, Aika's right hand, was the next to be targeted. While she kept talking about how she and Aika were surely best friends, all of their conversation was being heard by the doll itself. The doll had a new target, and it was none other than the loudmouth who was always with Aika. As she makes a definite decision, in the very next parts, we will see judgment on all the bullies who are trying to become angels just for the sake of getting away with punishment.